Hey guys, welcome to the Musings of Maverick channel, where I'm your host Maverick, and today we're going to be looking at Tensura episode 15. So, last episode we pretty much concluded the, orc invasion arc, if you will. I'm not sure if that's an actual arc or not, but it seems to be stopped at a proper point where the orc threat was decimated, and we also found out that the rest of the Kijin decide to continue and follow Rimuru. Now, I'm assuming that probably we're going to get some background details as to the aftermath, like maybe the orcs fall under Rimuru's command, or they made an alliance, whether there was an alliance with the lizard man, whether Gibaru decided to join Rimuru. But rather than all that, 2 episodes ago, I made a prediction that this is going to be the battle that puts Rimuru on the map. Because, typically speaking, I don't think 200,000 strong army can just appear out of nowhere and not incite some kind of response from all the different kingdoms, right? So, I'm expecting for them to have some kind of reaction once they know Rimuru defeated 200,000 orcs so easily. That means that he has a certain amount of military strength, right? So, I think that's what's going to be coming up next. Also, the Demon Lord, his subordinates was killed, his plan was foiled. Probably we're gonna get a little bit into the main plot as well. In any case, let's find out and watch the episode. So, let us begin in 3, 2, 1, play. Oh, so they're actually going to show us. Okay. Oh, a new opening? Well, that makes sense. This is the second core. As usual, I might or might not mute this. Since this is the first time this is playing, I will take a look through. A very boy band kind of feel. Something early 2000s. Oh. And who are you? Okay, part of the Demon Lords group. Well, judging from this opening, it would seem that the orcs joined Rimuru. Yeah, I agree. That's what I was mentioning last episode. Right, so if actually this was a more gritty or series grounded in more serious tone, realism, maybe if Rimuru joined the orcs, he would be the one leading the invasion. You know, and apparently, according to one of my viewers, one of the commenters, Guild actually is not a demon lord, or not an official demon lord.
弱肉強食。
No.
立ち向かった時点で覚悟はできていたはずだ。
お前たちも里を滅ぼされているけど文句はないのか？
ないと言えば嘘になりますが、次があれば同じ無様は晒しませんよ。
なるほど、正論ですな。ですが、一つどうしても確認させていただきたい。
なんだ？
多くをどうなさるのですか？多くの罪を問わぬということは、生き残った彼ら全てを受け入れるおつもりですか？
Yes.
数は減ったとはいえ、
Holy, there's still 150,000? Alright.
夢物語のように聞こえるかもしれないが、みんなで協力できればと考えている。
協力
と言いますと、リザードマンからは良質の水資源と魚を、ゴブリンからは住む場所を、俺たちの町からは加工品を提供する。そしてその見返りとしてオークからは労働力を提供してもらう。ジュラの大森林の各種族間で大同盟を。
Alright, and united under the banner of Rimuru.
種族共生国家とかできたら面白いと思うんだけどな。
我々がその同盟に参加させてもらえると。
帰る場所も行くあてもないんだろ。居場所を用意してやるから働けよ。サボることは許さんよ。
And now we got lots of labor. Free labor. Woohoo!
命がけで働かせてもらいます。ぜひ協力させていただきたい。
トレーニーさんもいいかな？
よろしいでしょう。私の守護するトレンド族からも森の実りを提供いたしましょう。当面多くたちの上を癒すことはできるかと思います。
150,000 though, that is not a small number.
森の管理者として私トレイニーが宣誓します。リムル様をジュラの大森林の新たなる名手
Chancellor?
名手リムル様の名のもとにジュラの森大同盟は成立いたしました。
なんか俺名手にされちゃったけど、トレーニーさんじゃない。
No, you've been set up by Terraini. Just accept it. Just go with the flow. Alright, now things are gonna get exciting. Because now we're operating on the national level, right?
冷や汗が止まらない俺を置き去りに、ジュラの森大同盟は成立したのだ。
何か用か？
弱肉強食とは言っても、憎しみはそう簡単に割り切れるものではない。我らはオーガの里を詫びきれはしない。虫のいい話であるのは重々承知している。だがどうかこの首一つでご容赦願えないだろうか。
戦いの後、今後もリムル様のもとにあり続けたいと伝えたら、俺たちに役職をくださった。
私はもののふリムル様の
Samurai?
書も兼ねてます。
白老は指南役、宗栄は隠密、村に残っているシュナと黒兵衛にもだ。で、俺は侍大将の座を賜った。軍事を預かる役どころだ。そんなとこについちまった以上、有能な人材を勝手に始末するわけにはいかんだろう。リムル様にあだなす存在ならば容赦はしないが、同盟に参加し名手と仰ぐのなら敵ではない。
アダナスなど滅相。あの方は我らを救ってくださった。従いこそすれ敵対などありえん。
では俺たちは同じ主をいただく仲間だ。せいぜいリムル様の役に立て。それを詫びとして受け取っておこう。
ギルドの名に使って
Oh? He's gonna be named? Alright. So now he's cut guild? Alright. What? Are you serious right now? All 150,000? Probably Rimuru intervened, right? Okay, and so that's why he Alright, so he is probably going to join. Wow. Alright. Oh, they're going to follow him? Alright. Main plot now. Okay, he's got Clayman. And indeed, that clown didn't really work directly under Demon Lord. Or Clayman. Oh. Good for you. Aw. Probably not gonna be peaceful for soon. Yep. Alright, and who are you guys? One of the neighboring kingdoms? As I said, they're now going to view him as a military threat.
こたびの件、対応を誤れば国が滅ぶやもしれぬ。
Well, he does seem to be a sensible dude. So probably they're not going to just start fighting out of the blue, right? Are you gonna turn into human form?
最初に名乗っておく。俺の名はリムルだ。スライムだが、スライム呼ばわりはやめてもらおう。これでも一応はジュラの森大同盟の盟主なんでね。これが本書ってわけでもないんだが、こっちの方が話をしやすいだろ。で、何の用だ？
担当直入に言おう。リムル、貴様を見極めに来たのだ。
見極め。
俺の剣で貴様の本性を見抜いてくれるわ。この森の名手となったなどとホラを吹く貴様には運というものを教えてやらねばなるまい。その剣が飾りでないというのなら俺の申し出を受けるがいい。およ、まさか。本気で戦ってみるのが手っ取り早いであろう。
よし、その申し出を受けよう。ホラ吹き呼ばわりしたことを後悔させてやる。
Alright. Oh, are we gonna get into a battle immediately? Really?
俺の一連の攻撃を防ぎ切ったら貴様の勝ちでいい。ただし、この俺、剣聖ガデルドアルゴの剣を甘く見ないことだ。
わかった。
それでは立ち会いは私が行いましょう。
まさかドライアド。貴様をホラ吹き呼ばわりしたことは謝罪するぞ。それに事情もおぼろげながら読めたわ。
じゃあ。
だが貴様の人となりを知るのは別の話だ。立ち会いにも決まったならば、あとは剣を交えるのみ。
ああ、そうだな。
Like I said, fairly sensible.
きっちりと説明してもらうとするわ。
俺に勝てたなら答えてやるさ。
はじめ。
Are they actually going to resolve this within this episode, though?
貴様の力はそんなものなのか、リムルよ。
うるさい。まだ本気を出していないだけだし、慌てんな。
Well, he's not exactly a swordsman, though.
さすがに強いな。しかし簡単に負けるわけにはいかない。あの構えは。
行くぞリムル。おぼろ危険往来。
Oh, Wait, what? That's it? I was just starting to get excited.
剣を交えてよくわかった。お前は邪悪な存在ではない。
なんでだよ。
それにしてもよくぞ俺のおぼろ地点号来を見切ったものよ。見事だったぞ、リムル。
いや、偶然だよ。その技、師匠が使っていて、訓練でよく打ちのめされた。それだけの話だ。
なんだと？まさか、その師匠というのは。お見事でしたな、リムルさん。
What? They're related?
元気だの。森で迷っていたあの時の小僧が見違えましたぞ。いや、失礼、ドワーフを。わし以上の剣士へと成長したようで頂上ですじゃ。元気殿にそう言っていた。
Huh. Okay.
苦労が師匠だ。
Well, that's convenient.
世の中どうつながっているのかわからないもんだ。なるほど。オークロードを倒した謎の魔物集団の調査だったと。
それが敵となるか味方となるか見極めにな。リムリよ、聞きたいことがある。
おう。
What's your purpose?
契約を結ぶつもりは。
Oh, wow. This guy really is straight to the point.
お前がもしもこの広大な森をすべて掌中にできたならば、我が国をも上回る富と力を手に入れることができよう。その時に後ろ盾となる国があれば便利だぞ。
願ってもないことだが、いいのか？それは俺たち魔物の集団を国として認めると、そう言っているのと同じだぞ。
無論だ。それとこの話、我らにとっても都合が良い。相互に利益がある話だ。
断る理由はないな。喜んで受けたいと思う。
よし。で、お前たちの国の名は。
Oh?
お、国の
He's bad at naming, right?
ジュラの森とリムルテンペストから名を取ってジュラテンペスト連邦国だ。
Federation? Alright.
さすがリムル様。
Just like that.
お前はリムルといたしましょう。
Uh.
中央都市リムルです。
おいおい、それはちょっと恥ずかしい。中央都市リムル、それ以外に。
我らの町にふさわしいのだ。
決まりのようだな。
Okay.
ああ。この日、歴史にジュラテンペスト連邦国、そして中央都市リムルの名が初めて刻まれたのである。
Alright, alright. Okay, a new ending as well. Oh, Veldora, I haven't seen you in a while. You know, this kind of animation style and this kind of ending song really reminds me a lot of the, I guess, early 2000s anime, more children-oriented anime. Well, I guess we can already know who's going to be joining him. Alright, that was nice. Alright, so that was episode 15 of Tensura. And boy, am I glad of the development that happened within this episode. If episode 13 was some much needed action in regards to the series as a whole, where we could see the growth of Rimuru and his companions, what kind of fighting level they were on, then this episode is one where they basically kicked open the door to the world of Tensura, and we can finally operate on a larger scale now, because now they are operating on a national level, so we can start to get into things such as politics or commerce, trade, that kind of thing, which makes it vastly more interesting, at least to me. So, as I pretty much mentioned, doing something this drastic, like subduing a 200,000 strong army, probably isn't going to go unnoticed by most players within the world. So now that he's made his name, he's put himself on the map. So maybe not quite in the major leagues yet, right? But at least Rimuru's not playing in his backyard anymore, is what I'm getting at. So, in lieu of this, let's take stock of his current situation, right? So right now, the episode started off with them forming this Jura Forest alliance, right? And Rimuru, it was deemed Meishu of this alliance. By the way, I don't agree with the translation of Chancellor. Meishu is basically the leader of a alliance. There's no direct translation for that or equivalent in English, but basically it would be something like, for instance, the United States being the leader of the Allied forces during the World War II, or Great Britain and France during the 7 Years' War. So it's typically not one person, right? But it's definitely not something like a chancellor either. So, minor nitpick. So they started out with this sort of alliance, right? And so the alliance consisted of the orcs, the goblins, the lizard man, and I guess the Kijin or various other companions of Rimuru. So we can say that his forces total 150,000 orcs, high orcs in fact, so maybe even more threatening than the original orc army. And we know that the lizardmen can field a force of about 100,000 people. The goblins, let's just ignore them for now. So that seems to be a sizable army in of itself, right? And I'm assuming that the orcs are operating under Rimuru's direct command, since he pretty much named all of them. Is it actually like that? I'm not quite sure, because then things are complicated a little bit further, right? Where by the end of the episode, apparently Rimuru established his own nation as well, the Jura Tempest Federation. Now, it is calling it a federation is a little bit interesting to me, because in order to be a federation, you need to be a joint of either different nations or, I guess, nation states or city states, right? So for instance, the most famous federation would probably be the United States, where each state has its own government at the local level, but then they also have a federal level governing body. So that would be a federation. Here, not quite sure what exactly the local level government is. So is he actually meaning that the Lizardman and the Orcs are also part of his federation now? It doesn't seem that way, right? Because they didn't have any representatives at this signing of the treaty or at the formation of this federation. So it's a little bit ambiguous there. Or, of course, maybe the author didn't think of it that much. He just decided to pick whatever name that he felt was suitable and he wanted to use. But otherwise, I'm failing to see what exactly the federation is right now. And you can't make a federation of just one city. It doesn't really work that way, right? And but again, that's just some minor nitpick, or it could be just a foreshadowing of in the future how Rimuru is going to, I guess, effectively divide or rule his nation. Yeah. And speaking of which, right, so we should probably also talk a little bit about what compelled Rimuru to form this federation in the first place, and that would be the Dwarf King. What's it called again? Gazelle Durago, right? So, as mentioned, if any competent nation, if you encounter a situation where this sudden huge force rises up out of nowhere, if you're not stupid, you would do well to investigate the situation. In fact, I personally thought that it was the Dwarf King, waiting 3 months to launch this expedition was a little bit late, right? I think if it really was this kind of situation, probably his response should have been a little bit faster, right? Because if this was actually an evil army, if you will, then waiting 3 months' time and waiting for them to regroup and set up their defenses, that seems a little bit too long. But it's nice, right? That this Dwarf King does seem to be a very competent ruler. He understands the situation and he knows what's the best for his nation. He doesn't jump to conclusions, and he's just a general all-around good king, I think. And it's actually fairly rare that we see this kind of king who's also not ruthless at the same time. He seems to be fairly benevolent, right? Although I don't quite think that his logic of fighting Rimuru to determine if he was evil quite makes sense, right? So basically, I think it's more like testing whether Rimuru is the real deal, whether he has the power and strength to back up his words, and also to determine if he's worthy of being an ally from a power perspective, rather than if he's really testing if Rimuru is evil or not. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he has some special qualities in them. Maybe his sword has some special qualities in them. But it seems like a fairly odd way to determine one's character, right? So, again, being the competent king that he is, he decided to form an alliance also, or sign a treaty with Rimuru, with this new nation. I guess, I was actually thinking about, why he wanted to do this, right? Besides the obvious fact of not wanting to waste his time and energy or manpower to fight a unknown force, right? If you can avoid conflict, you should avoid it. Because he mentioned mutual beneficent, how they can mutually benefit from this treaty, I was thinking, like, what other stuff the Dwarf King is worried about, where he would be compelled to sign this kind of treaty. And so that, I guess, ties in a little bit with the third point I want to bring up. So, if I recall correctly, within the first few episodes, we kind of had an understanding of the general geography of the area. So the land seems to be divided into sort of like the east part and the west part, with the Jura forest in the middle. So in this sense, you can also say that this forest is actually a pretty important strategic position in terms of dividing or connecting the two different east and west sides, right? It's sort of like the middle point. In fact, I seem to recall that within one of the episodes, they did mention an empire of some sort that was trying to extend its forces into this forest now that Veldora is gone, so that they can secure the strategic position and make it a staging ground for eventual evasion into the other side. So I'm guessing that this probably also plays into a factor as to why the Dwarf King wanted this ally at this position, right? So, from his perspective, this is also a buffer for him as well, for his nation. So, if anybody is going to be invaded, they would have to go through Rimuru's nation first. So, that would make complete strategic sense. Of course, there might be also some other stuff in it as well. Like, he mentioned how the resources of the forest was very vast. So I'm actually wondering if whether in the newest, or I mean in later episodes, we'll find out that maybe that forest is very rich in some natural resources, etc., etc. Because that's normally how these kinds of series go. Any kind of series that tries to do nation building typically has some sort of foundation in which to build a nation on, and economy is a big point of that. We got the labor part, right? So again, if you read a lot of this kind of light novels or works where they do mention these nation building stuff, especially building from scratch, one of the first things you need to have first is to have the manual labor. So in this case, it was provided by the orcs. Convenient, right? And in some other works, it might have been either magic or machines, or in some cases even things like the undead, right? Because you have to have a labor in order to make industry, and you have to have industry in order to create a great nation. And of course, once you have this kind of labor, manpower, etc., you also need the raw resources as well. So in this case, probably there is some good stuff in the forest, is what I'm getting at. So that's probably a second condition, or a second consideration by the Dwarf King. So he's betting that this new nation will probably be a pretty lucrative trading partner as well. So I guess that about sums up my observations of this episode as a whole, and maybe a little bit prediction as to how we're going to continue on in the future. So one part which I feel this could go is directly going into what I just mentioned, right? I seem to recall that there was more forces at hand who are also vying for a foothold in this area. So that could be the potential spark of a whole new conflict. And besides, like I said, any nation worth their salt, any competent nation, would probably have known of this situation and probably take notice, and also do some of their own countermeasures as well. The Dwarf King might have just been the first on the scene. Probably the other human nations, or etc., will also want to come and take a look at what's going on. So one of my predictions would be that is probably going to be the next conflict. Or it's either that, or we're going to go with the route where the Demon Lord route, basically. So it seems that the Demon Lord, what's he called again? Greymore? I think he's called Greymore? Oh, Clayman. Sorry, not Greymore. Clayman. So Clayman doesn't seem to be very phased by Rimuru's appearance. So I'm assuming that probably his power level is still maybe a bit higher than what we've seen so far. Maybe not quite. It's hard to say, but I'm assuming that he also has at least greater power than what Guild demonstrated, right? So I'm guessing it's either going to do one of these two routes, either conflict with the human kingdoms, human nations, or going into resolving the Demon Lord storyline. So yeah, that's what I have so far, judging from this episode. So again, great. I love that we can finally operate on a larger scale now. This is one of my constant criticisms of this series, actually, where I feel like the entire world that the author has built seems to be very interesting. He's hinted at a lot of kinds of different elements within this world, but we've kept on focusing on basically Rimuru in his small village. And now we can finally look at things from a bigger perspective. So, in any case, that has been my review of Tensura. This has been Mavri. Let me know what you guys think below, but again, no spoilers, right? So, I'll see you guys next time.